That wonderful 10th chapter of the Gospel of John is affectionately known as the Good Shepherd chapter. However, this is not a sermon about Jesus, the Good Shepherd. It's about Jesus, who is the gate. Or in my translation, the door. Verses 7 through 10 of John's Gospel seem to have been sort of plunked down in the midst of his other writings in that chapter, because John, the metaphor that he uses, seems to switch from the shepherd to the door, or the gate. Both, of course, are metaphors. But we can identify with the shepherd metaphor, I think, more quickly, because shepherds are people. And gates are, well, gates. It takes a little more work, I think, for us to see how Jesus can be likened to a gate. The commentator tells us that John is really still working with the shepherd figure, and that the gate is then the temporary gate to the sheepfold made out of rocks that is still in the field. A sheepfold generally was a stockade-like arrangement attached to the home of the shepherd in the village. But often the shepherds stayed with their sheep overnight or longer in the field. Remember, we sing at Christmas, while shepherds watched their flocks by night. That wasn't at home, that was in the field. And when they stayed in the field overnight, of course, they used these temporary pens, or they had to make them up out of field stones. And the shepherd would then sleep in the opening of that temporary pen. And it's this picture to which the verses in John allude. Jesus is the shepherd that truly is the gate in the field. So the sheep had to come and go through him. The meaning of the metaphor seems to now have shifted from the guardian role of the shepherd to the gate itself. What's the purpose of a gate? What's the purpose of a door? It's a passageway, isn't it? From one place to another. Even from one construction of reality to another construction of reality. And I think this is the way that John would have us understand his metaphor. Remember in the upper room on Maundy Thursday, Jesus tells his friends, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus, as the gate, is the passageway from, as St. Augustine had said, the city of man to the city of God. Jesus is the gate that leads to life's deepest meaning on earth, to its joy, its peace, as well as to the eternal life of God's kingdom. But the door to life that Jesus is not for those who are looking for a shortcut, an easy way to heaven. It ain't. The door into the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem is just tall enough and just wide enough for one person to kind of scrunch over and go in. There are various reasons given by the guides why it was made that way, but we won't need to go into that. However, the historical reasons, it does remind pilgrims of the humility that they need before they can enter into God's presence. Jesus said the gate is narrow and the way difficult that leads to life, and few be there that find it. He said this because his way is the way of the cross. And the way of the cross is the way of death before resurrection. Death not to just our old ways, our selfish ways, our spiteful, hurtful ways, but death, more importantly, to that which would rule from the throne of our hearts, the sovereign self, the me that has claimed all rights and privileges thereto appertaining to me. The old man, Paul said, it has to die if God is going to have his rightful place in human hearts as king. Each of us, I think, has to experience our own good pride before we can know the new life of being raised with Christ. Death and resurrection, death before resurrection, death before life, is the way of the cross. And as the prayer said, it is the way of life and peace. Now, the well-known sins, those society condemns, stealing, lying, lust, murder, etc., are clearly no-nos for the follower of Christ. And few people have trouble tagging them as things that are wrong. It's when the sovereignty of the ego is challenged that most of us have the most trouble.